Now you can.
There we go. All right. Welcome, welcome. Thank you. Thanks, Parvati, for setting up Zoom. Welcome, Lisa. How you doing?
Thanks.
Happy New Year to you both.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Is there anything that either of you would particularly like to share? We haven't seen each other for a few weeks. Well, I saw you yesterday, Parvati, but speaking in terms of the group in general, we haven't been together for a few weeks, and any kind of check-in where you're at, what's been unfolding for you, what would be meaningful to share in this moment or to explore during this class together. And have either of you been reading the Kriya Yoga book that we've been reading together in class? Have you explored the practices?
No,
Okay.
I was reading some sutras last night.
Which text?
Patanjali's.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But translated by Swami. Can't remember. Anyway, that's yeah.
Okay.
And I was reading a little bit of Lamy Yeshe's book as well.
Uh-huh.
But I haven't been in the doing the other book.
Okay.
Excuse me if I'm a little bit like, because I'm still sick, so my head is a little bit fuzzy still.
All right. All right. Have you had flu?
Yeah, I don't know what it was. Like some just I don't know if it was flu or COVID or I mean it felt like what it felt like when I had COVID.
Yeah.
So or just a very, very strong flu. But I'm about a week into it now, so or a little bit more than a week into it. So I'm still like feel like I'm wearing like a helmet.
Right. Yeah. Okay. As melhoras. You know that expression? As melhoras.
At
Because
melhores, does that
as
get better?
melhoras. It's like saying get better soon.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. I
And
suppose.
how have you been feeling?
I'm feeling better now. I had a rough patch, and I think I shared with the group on the day or the day after that I was finally pain free because breathing was painful for a while,
Right.
and it went from, I described it to someone the other day. It went from feeling like I had a knife in my side. To feeling like a few days later, like I'd swallowed a whole potato, which wasn't quite
Oh,
as uncomfortable. It was still not comfortable, but it was far less sharp.
right.
And then, yeah, I'm pain free now, so I'm feeling good.
Good. Glad
I
to hear it.
It was an intense learning experience because the pain was intense with any movement and with any breath. You know, it was literally I was breathing very shallow, and because the expansion of the lungs would hurt, and so I had to kind of learn how to exist almost without breathing. I mean, obviously I was breathing, but I wasn't breathing in the way that I normally would, you know, with kind of
Right.
relaxed movement of the lungs. So it became just you know, I had to learn how to breathe, how to manage the pain because I had to breathe, but also how to breathe in a way that wouldn't trigger as much pain. And interestingly, the book on my bedside table was called Breathe. So I was I was reading these experiments about breath and what's been discovered about breath in recent years. And I when I did the GraceFlow practice and just the kind of the grounding and doing some mantra practice, it was interesting actually. One of the things I tried to do was some mantra while I was sick, and even the mantras that weren't directly associated with the breath, you know, where a syllable is used on the inhalation and another one on the exhalation, just a mantra that I would normally chant, because of the association of the chanting and as a verbal practice which influences your breath, even doing it silently was influencing my breath,
Mm.
because normally I would breathe it a certain way, and so when I was reciting it silently, it was triggering pain, because it was um, taking me out of that kind of micromanagement of my breathing for it to be painless, and it was triggering my normal breathing because I was silently doing the mantra. It was an interesting
Right.
challenge. To I had to dissociate the breath from the chanting of it, which even in your memory is there and influences how you breathe.
Mhm, mhm.
Um,
Patterns.
yeah, yeah. Um, and so finding the freedom from old patterns was you know, taken to a new level, um, and it was amazing to see when I was practicing the grace flow practices, when I was doing the grace flow practices, how it didn't completely take the pain away, but it took some of the tension away that made the pain more easy to manage. And so I found myself able to breathe more deeply, and to not be overwhelmed by the pain, even though I was breathing more deeply. And managing the pain and the breath and my movement and my position of my body, because everything would trigger pain. So it was really like a full-time focus. But then when I did the practice, I found myself going from this kind of full-time focus on managing pain to feeling in a really good mood. So it was like, I'm in pain, but I feel good.
It
It
hurts so
took me
good.
to a new place. Say again?
It hurts so good.
It was yeah, it was a strange place where it was pain wasn't a worry anymore. It was just there and it was being managed. You know, it was just what was
Nice.
there to do, but it was no longer forefront and making, you know, taking up all my attention. Then there was like the space opened up where there was well-being, and the
So,
management could just kind of go on by itself in some sense.
yeah. So like pain without the misery of pain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good succinct way to put it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Hmm. But it was a good opportunity for me to reinforce for myself the efficacy of the practices and how um, but and also to observe how I didn't immediately use the practices. For a while I was just immersed in the pain and in managing it, and then eventually um, in my miserable state I just found an opening for, okay, let me do some practice here. And it's so easy to think we don't have the space for it. We don't have the time. It's not going to be worth it in this circumstance. It's very easy to overlook the practices. and I've said this especially in relation to the 20 connected breaths. You know, it's a this practice has a problem. It's too simple. You know, you
I
do it in
mean,
3 minutes.
the 20 connected breaths is like, I love that practice and I use it all the time.
Great,
Um,
great. And once you do create the habit, it's there for you. If you don't
yeah,
create the habit, it's very easy to just forget it exists.
right.
Yeah.
And pain is an interesting thing. Like the first, probably like the second day that I was sick, it was like really, really intense, like body pain for me. And I could feel myself like, you know, wanting to just get away from it, and like the resistance in me to this pain, you know. It was all in my joints and my neck and my, you know, hips, everything. And then I was like, okay, instead of trying to run away from this pain or resisting it or like, you know, getting irritated by it, I was like, I'm going to try and like relax into it and allow it be. Um, and that's an interesting space to be in as well, like allowing pain, you know? Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That's the same challenge exists for emotional pain, you know, psychological pain,
Right.
as for physical pain. It goes against our instinct to allow it, to open to it, to
For
create
sure.
space for it.
Yeah.
Our instinct is to fight against it, to
Right.
be in battle,
Uh-huh.
treat it as an enemy and something to overcome. And that may just be completely ineffective, and worse than ineffective. It can be escalating tension, creating more difficulty for healing to take place. Um, One of the most immediate tools that I share and use is the sigh for decompressing. And it can be done intentionally, and it can also be found when we start to ground and settle. The sigh can come spontaneously. Um, I couldn't use it in my pain because I couldn't take that deep breath, that sigh of relief that would normally come as I would relax. It was too painful, and
Mm-hmm.
so it was yeah, I needed to find different ways to settle and relax that somehow didn't involve deep breathing. So it was an interesting challenge. Yeah. um, Typically spirituality has been, and for decades I would say, spirituality became about mind over matter, disregarding very much the body and feelings even, because the idea is, whatever you're experiencing, feeling in the body, in your life, you can control it if you can control your mind. If
Mm-hmm.
you can control the direction of your thinking, you can reshape your reality. And so if you have a disease, it's in your mind, as at the source of it is in your mind. So it very much disregarding the influence that comes from your physiology to your mental state,
Mm-hmm.
way in which your emotional, physiological state is shaping what's happening in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a book I read, sorry, called The Ultramind Solution, I think is the main title. And the subtitle is Fix Your Broken Brain. It's by a doctor called Mark Hyman, who's one of the people that developed functional medicine. I think he's one of the founders of functional medicine. And that book really helped to wake me up to the importance of if you think of mind over matter as a top-down approach, um, to really honor and have a deeper understanding of the bottom up influence that the body has on your mind. Because in the book he really explores how, well, first of all, he went through this experience of tremendous brain fog. He was studying to be a doctor, he was in medical school, and he went through this period where he couldn't remember what he was saying. He was just, it was like his mind was shutting down and he had no idea what was taking, why. And no one seemed to be able to help him. They didn't understand what was going on. And eventually it would turned out that he had been, had high levels of toxicity of heavy metals in his blood because he'd been working, I don't remember if it was in China, but he was somewhere where there was a lot of industrial pollutants that had built up in his system. So he needed to do a very deep cleanse to unblock his physiology. And this led on to other research, and eventually he became able to reverse depressive conditions that people would normally be diagnosed as, this is a physiological thing, it's genetic, you're going to have this for life, you just got to take these pills and that's all you can do. And he found that there are ways to reverse these conditions, and diagnoses that would normally be of autism, people that would be diagnosed with autism, and just like, that's, you're born with it and that's just how it's going to be, there's nothing to do about it. And he found that actually there were physiological conditions that were creating what people were calling autism.
Right.
Even autism, which you could say, oh, was misdiagnosed, whatever. The people who were being diagnosed as autistic had reversible conditions, but no one was trying to reverse them because they diagnosed it as autism, which was considered an irreversible condition. So,
right. Wow.
Yeah. So it's a really fascinating book and a fascinating field, functional medicine, functional nutrition. So it really, for me, was a big wake up call to acknowledge where I'd been disregarding the body's influence. And
it's a really interesting subject. I worked in a chemist for a few years, and in Ireland, and we still have fluoride in our water in Ireland. And there have been so many reports done on the effect of fluoride and it causing depression and brain fog and all of these different things that you're talking about as well. And when I was working in the chemist, I was like, wow, most of the people who are coming in with the illnesses that they have and breathing like respiratory conditions as well, pretty much all of them are related to like fluoride toxicity, yeah.
Yeah. There are many things that go unnoticed by society and by the medical establishment, and that and lead to chronic conditions and what people classify as an irreversible disease. And that's been for me something that's I've tried to look deeper. Whenever someone says, here is a barrier that you can't pass, I want to understand, okay, well, who says so? Why? What's the nature of this barrier? Who put it there? Is it nature? Is it a construct of reality itself? Or has someone just created this belief that we've taken for granted now, that there is no way to go past this? And so the same, it's in some ways off topic, but in the sense that Tantra is, in the way that I teach it, in the Tantra foundations, one of the 4 core characteristics is nonconformity, right? To be able to think for ourselves, right? To investigate for ourselves, to look with fresh eyes at something, not through the filter that someone else has given you when they tell you this is how things are. And so in that sense, it's not off topic. You know, for my journey went through these kind of investigations in all areas of life, you know, seeing what was on the frontiers of acceptable behavior, on the frontiers of human knowledge, where it's like, well, we don't know beyond that and we can't know beyond that, or this is incurable. And so one of the things I ended up studying in some depth was alternative models of the nature of cancer. And to the point where I, with a naturopath friend of mine, studied one of the models created. It's not even alternative medicine, so to speak. It was really an alternative understanding that was developed within the medical field, but then became rejected by the medical orthodoxy and the pharmaceutical industry in particular, really. But it was a theory or a thesis developed within medicine. And my friend and I did this study, created a presentation, gave a talk on this in a place in Lisbon. And we had, I don't know if I've shared this story with you before, but we had people
No.
from the pharmaceutical industry come to the talk and very quietly say to us at the end, you've got to get this information out. Because they
Wow.
clearly weren't able to talk about it. They must have had some sort of non-disclosure agreement, some relationship with their companies that made it impossible for them to get the information out. So yeah, if anyone's interested,
I'm really interested in that.
okay, so I can just share a couple of resources that you can follow up with on that. There's a documentary that's packed with information. It's so old that it looks like a PowerPoint presentation rather than a documentary. But it's called World Without Cancer, and it's the same title as the book, which it draws from in terms of the research that it's explaining. It's elaborated in more detail in the book called World Without Cancer by Edward G. Griffin, or is it G. Edward Griffin? Anyway, Edward Griffin. It's it's very well explained in the book and in the documentary. There are more recent studies and books that exist as well. Like there's a guy called Philip Day. I think he's an English guy who has added more recent research, but on the same line of research, and has created protocols for treatment and prevention.
Okay. Because cancer is also, I think Ireland is like in the top 3 or maybe even like the highest rates of cancer in Europe. Like we're up really high on it. And it's also like another thing that's kind of related to fluoride. But yeah, I mean, there's many different factors, but
Yeah, I don't know much. I know fluoride has been referred to as problematic, but I don't remember what the effects are in the body. Is it basically creating a kind of calcification and blocking things that should be
gosh, I
functioning?
can't remember the like exactly what it does. I just know that it's toxic. The
Yeah.
Nazis used it um in the concentration camps, like as a toxin, you know. And it's been taken out of water worldwide other than in Australia, parts of the States, and I think there may be even parts of the UK that are still maybe have, but and then it's in Ireland as well.
Right. I remember when I was growing up, finding out about it, and it was still in the water at the time. I guess
Right,
UK and in Portugal, it was one of the reasons why we were me and my family no longer using tap water.
right.
Um, and I don't know when they stopped using it, but it's good to know that no longer part of the Portuguese water supply.
Right, right. Um, there's a really good, an amazing article on it in Hot Press. Um, and I think it was actually an Irish person who did the research, but it's like a really informative article. I'm gonna see if I can find it. I haven't subscribed to Hot Press, and I think that you now like need to like pay for articles or whatever, but I will look for it and see if I can find it because it's a really amazing article with amazing research and data and
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd be interested to check that out. We don't often talk much about in the teacher training about let's say looking after our health. We've talked a bit about how being in touch with nature is important, and we've talked about how sometimes the body's intelligence will tell us what we need to do, and it may be not sitting in silence with our eyes closed. And Parvati's brought this up as well, how for her movement and exercise is a meditative practice, and it's what is being called for. And but apart from mentioning it as a, let's say, as something to be listening for, to be open to the body informing us, it's not something we've explored in depth. What kind of health practices we could do. We've in one of the retreats in this last year, I think perhaps in just one of the retreats, we covered the five Tibetans, or the Tibetan rites, known as the Fountain of Youth, and also we did the Egyptian practices. These are very powerful. If done correctly, they're very powerful for unblocking our energy pathways, our nadis. And in the traditional Hatha yoga, which is connected with the traditional Tantra, there are practices for purification, ranging from fasting to purging. It's considered an important preparation for us to be able to safely awaken Kundalini, to have our energy pathways cleansed, and physiological pathways. So it's not just the subtle element of nadis, but also our intestines, our nasal passageways, our breathing apparatus. So cleansing of the buildup of mucus and so on. So to a great extent, if we're really paying attention to our bodies, we will be guided. So it will be guided to what we need. One of the practices that was used, it's not very popular today, but one of the practices that's talked about in some of the ancient texts is drinking your own urine.
Uh-huh.
And doing that in the morning, avoiding the first bit of urine and the last bit of urine, which has a high concentration of salts. But some years ago, I experimented with that. Also, partly as a challenge to myself, because it's one of those things which the left-hand path of Tantra is very much challenging our ideas about what is clean, what is acceptable, what is clean, and in some sense, it's challenging us to recontextualize everything, redesignate everything as sacred.
Mm-hmm.
And so going from relating to urine as waste product to medicine is involves a real shift in your inner beliefs, right? In your beliefs, in your categories. It requires not just the physical act of drinking, but a whole reconfiguring of your of your belief system, you know.
Right, right. And it's an amazing antihistamine, or like if somebody has like allergies and they don't have their EpiPen, if you drink your urine, it'll get rid of the anaphylactic shock.
Right, right.
Um,
Amazing.
and I also drank my urine, but it was on a vision quest because I thought I was going to get really thirsty, and you're not allowed to bring any food or liquid with you. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to like drink loads of water before I go, and I'll have a cup with me.
Right.
And so I actually ended up using my urine for various different things during my vision quest, but one of them was to hydrate.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. But had you done it before, or are you?
No, that was my first time.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Parvati looks very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Especially when you went saying interesting. It's not interesting at all.
It's really actually not that bad. I mean, you're not supposed to like drink your first pee because of, you know, the whole
Yeah.
night of there are like more toxins in it or whatever. But after that, and if you've had a lot of water and your diet is clean, it's really, I didn't find it unpleasant.
And you know, when you say if your diet is clean, it will really help you to start paying attention to what you're putting into your body.
Right.
Because whatever you put into your body, you'll be noticing when you
Yeah.
drink. So it's like it's like a feedback mechanism that it gives you much more sensitivity to how your body is responding
Mhm.
to what you're taking in.
Mm.
Parvati, in the Tirumantiram, there is some verses there that refer to it.
You want me to bring the book? I have
I don't
it
remember
in.
which verses it is, but it is mentioned there. I don't remember if there's an index, a detailed index at the back of the book. I don't. If there is, you could look it up. But it's in the practices, I think that the urine is referred to as amrita. So and it's referred to as a longevity practice.
Right. And another thing it's supposed to help with is like that your hair doesn't go gray.
Yeah. Well, you can see I've not been practicing. Yeah.
But yeah, I'd heard of it as a longevity practice, and particularly the antihistamine thing for people who have nut allergies or for.
Yeah, it's funny
I've
you mentioning that today because just yesterday I was hearing an interview with someone talking about using an EpiPen for allergies. That's
Right.
something I hear every day.
I've heard about the not the human but the cow pee, the cow urine.
For medicinal purposes, but drinking
Yeah.
or used in creams and so on for other medicines.
Both, but mostly drinking for
Yeah.
medicinal purposes in Ayurveda.
Okay. Yeah.
Sounds
And
I think-
also it is said that it also helps you to get rid of black magic.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah.
drinking cow pee.
No, drinking for the black magic, I don't think it will help by drinking, but maybe like if you just spread around the place or yourself, it will help you to clean your aura or something like that. But
Wow.
it smells. My parents did that once. They brought it at home because they thought they had black magic or something done. And they like spread like a little in home, and it smelled really bad. And after a few minutes, the house was full of
Flies.
moscas,
Flies.
flies. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And if I remember, I read a book on the feng shui, yeah, on feng shui, and the book was talking about the meaning of many divisions of the house, and there was a special chapter on the infiltrations and bugs in the house, and they use it. And about the flies, it represented, according to the book, intense emotions. No, so like I don't know how, like applying one method that brings another symptoms is really effective, because I don't know if you understand. You use the cow urine to get rid of black magic, but then you have another symptom in your house, which are the flies.
Yeah, but there's always
No?
context, right? You
Yeah.
there are tools for diagnosis, and there can be some degree of, let's say, simple correspondence between things.
Mhm.
But context is always important for a diagnosis. And so
Yeah.
um, if you've introduced a reason for the flies to be there, then when they're there, it's not necessarily a sign that there is some sort of emotional thing to be solved. If you hadn't introduced
Yeah.
cow urine into the space, and there was always in a particular space in the house for no other explicable reason this concentration of flies, then that could be a clue to something. But it's not going to, you refer to it as a symptom, right? So it's not that the flies are going to create emotional issues there. The existence of flies within that system could be an indicator that they're there as a response, right? As a response to an emotional, energetic problem.
Guys,
Yeah, but
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm really enjoying this, but I need to leave already. So
Okay, Lisa.
maybe I'd love to, yeah, I'll watch the end of the class anyway to see what you guys discuss, because this is really interesting. So thank you, and I'll see you on Monday.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Big
Thanks
hug.
a
see
lot.
you. Bye.
And,
Have a
see
nice
you later.
weekend.
Thank you, you too. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
So we were talking about not being a symptom.
That it's a symptom, not a cause, right? So it's not going to cause emotional problems.
Yeah.
If the urine ends up creating this influx of flies, it's not going to create emotional problems. So yeah, it's not creating. So yeah, the context is always fundamental. There was a funny thing. I don't know if you saw the recording. I don't think you were in the class where, no, with Enrique and Agni, where they joined to
No, I
the
wasn't.
question around Kundalini. And one thing Agni said was that what she learned with me was that I never answer a question. But
Yeah.
what she meant was, I never give a question without exploring context.
Yeah.
We might look for let's say a simple answer, but without exploring context, we won't be getting a true understanding. We'll be easily misapplying that information in the future if we haven't understood why something is the
Mm.
case. And so the same thing with the whole process of diagnosis. You've got to look at context, or you can misdiagnose.
Yeah.
Which is why these ancient practices, Ayurveda and the Siddha medicine and Chinese medicine, is so elaborate in its study of the individual human being, the types of human being, the particular human being, their daily habits. It's really establishing the context in which the symptoms have appeared. Because the same symptoms can have different causes. Is there anything you'd particularly like to explore with the rest of the class today?
Well, actually today I don't have like a lot of no, don't have much questions or any theme in particular, but you started by the talking about 20 connected breaths. I don't remember the practice like so well. So if you don't mind, I would like to be guided for
Yeah,
that practice.
sure. It's a practice that I can explain it during the practice. It's not so much a guided, not like so much like a guided
Yeah.
meditation, because the breathing is fast, and
Hmm.
and basically
Yeah.
you count it yourself, and you might have your own rhythm of breathing that will be different to someone else's. So I'll explain it, and we can do it together.
And one question, like, because I think it was my Ayurveda doctor told she told me that I shouldn't do a lot of breathing exercises, or like, because my mind all works a lot, you know. So it could influence because of the vata element. I'm not much under that.
Yeah.
But I yeah, yeah, but I would like also to know what will be the effect of this practice. If you could give me an introduction, because I don't usually
Yeah.
I practice only the grace flow. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So often what I share with people are three main practices, um, or even two at an initial stage, which is the grace flow meditation and the 20 connected breaths. Sometimes I just share those two with people. And the 20 connected breaths I share partly because of its efficiency in terms of the time it takes. You can condense the GraceFlow practice into a 3-minute practice. It's possible to do. It can be effective, even in 3 minutes of grounding and connecting, and being aware of your body's intelligence and giving space for the sigh to arise and for movement. You can do all of that in 3 minutes and have a significant shift take place by just dedicating that time. So, and but it usually takes some experience, takes some familiarity with the GraceFlow practice before you can condense it effectively. Normally we take a little time to unwind, and so the guided practice with space and with giving it time will tend to be what people need at the beginning. But the 20 connected breaths as a 3-minute practice can be used, for example, 5 times a day. It can be used more, but as an example of creating a discipline, a habit of doing something that's going to support your well-being throughout your day, throughout your week, and to really shift your habitual state with the simplest, shortest practice, so it doesn't require a big commitment. You don't have to have a lot of time to fit 3 minutes in here and there. So I share it partly for its efficiency, time-wise, because you could say that no one can honestly justify not having time to do it. So that's one of the reasons. It's like you have time to do this. So what it consists of is, as the name suggests, the whole practice just involves 20 breaths of pranayama, let's say, of ordered or controlled breathing. You're breathing in a specific way over the course of 20 breaths. Strictly speaking, it's not an exercise that's complete in 20 breaths. You do 20 breaths in this particular way, then for the remaining of the remaining period of the 3 minutes, because it doesn't take 3 minutes to do the 20 breaths, for the remaining period, you're just allowing yourself to, if you're able to, because you might be busy doing stuff and you can do it in a busy environment if you need to. But let's say if you're doing it as a normal meditation, you would just let yourself rest during the remaining part of the 3 minutes. So the actual 20 connected breaths time frame is usually about half a minute or 40 seconds. But it requires a bit more time for your physiological state to change as a result of the 20 connected breaths. So that's why I call it a 3-minute practice. So the pattern of breathing, you repeat you do 4 fast breaths followed by 1 deep breath. Okay, 4 fast in and out breaths followed by a deep in and deep out breath, and then repeat the same again. So that those 5 breaths, right, those 4 plus 1, those 5 breaths are done a total of 4 cycles, 4 cycles of those 5, making the 20. Okay, so I'll demonstrate it. Let me know if you can hear my breath. Sometimes the Zoom is configured to kind of filter out certain types of sounds, and it might not pick up my breathing. So sometimes hearing the breathing pattern really helps to make sense of it, because the words kind of can confuse us a little bit, and when you hear it, it becomes physiologically meaningful rather than just theoretically meaningful. So I'll demonstrate. And one thing that I'll add before I demonstrate is that you shouldn't, ideally you wouldn't jump straight into the practice with the fast breathing. That's how it's conventionally taught. But if you're tense and then you start doing fast breathing, you tense a little more, right? The accelerated breathing feels anxious. So before you start the cycle of 20 breaths, which begins with those fast breaths, I suggest a little stretch, giving yourself the opportunity to sigh. Maybe taking 3 rich breaths, even a few more if you're especially tense, and then you do the 20 connected breaths, right? So at least 1 deep or let's say relaxed open breath, and then you can move into the 20 breaths from a less tense place, and it functions much better that way. So I'll begin with a deep breath. In this case, I've inhaled through the nose and exhaled like a sigh through the mouth, but it doesn't have to be done that way. As I said, normally you would give yourself 3 minutes, so the rest of the time after the 20 breaths would be in a restful state. Ideally, not opening your eyes for a while so that you're in that restful space, your mind not being triggered by what's going on around you. And that gives yourself a greater opportunity, if your eyes are closed, to shift your state. You know, if your senses are continuously aware of your external environment, it's more difficult to shift your state because your external environment is implying that either things are not changing if it's a static environment, or it's if it's a busy environment, then it's like it's telling you what you should feel in some sense, how you should be. So by just giving yourself that bubble for a moment to just let your physiology respond to the practice, that's the ideal. But I also share this practice as something you can do if you need to in a family dinner while sitting there with everyone, in a business meeting. So you don't have to close your eyes. You don't have to do intense breathing. You can do it very subtly and still get the pattern done in such a way that it influences your physiology and your state of mind and your well-being. So could you hear my breath? Sometimes you can hear the louder part, but not the whole breath. And so what I want to add is that it's connected breathing, meaning there's no pause, and that may not be audible in the sound here on Zoom. It may be that this sound fades out, but what I'm doing is continuously breathing, which means in the fast breathing, it's inevitable perhaps that you will be doing continuous breathing. But the tendency we have when we take the deep breath is to breathe in and then pause. This is, if we're not really paying attention, that's what we'll tend to do. We'll tend to pause at the end of the inhalation, and only after the pause, then we'll exhale, and then we'll tend to pause again, right? We don't do that in this practice. The connected breathing, especially to do it as connected breathing, that's where we need to pay attention. It's in the deep breath. Because as soon as we finish the inhalation, we exhale. As soon as we finish the exhalation, we're back to the next cycle of 4 fast breaths. So that's where we need to pay attention on that 5th breath, to keep it continuous. Because, so to explain a bit more why this works, at any moment in our lives, we are in a certain state of mind, certain feeling state, certain physiological state, a rhythm, a configuration, and often we come back to default states that we exist in, you know, and maybe our states, maybe we have multiple default states, one for work, one for when we're with one type of person, one with another, but they're our usual state. It's like a configuration we find ourselves going back to, but as a default. Stress will have its configuration and conversation, and so all these different patterns exist, right? Our breathing will be different in each of those states. Our breathing is directly related to our feeling state, to the kind of attention we're giving to something, to how we're processing what we're experiencing. So our breathing is always mirroring our state of mind, our feeling state, right? So when you change your breathing pattern, you're changing your state of mind, your feeling state. You're softening the edges of the pattern, that's kind of consolidated. You're dissolving the habitual state. You're dissolving the pattern that you've created. So if you're obsessing about something and you can't stop thinking about it, and you do the 20 connected breaths for a moment at least, because you've shifted your breathing. And the same would be true for moving your body and changing your physical posture. We'll have habitual postures in different circumstances as well. And if we change our posture, we'll start to more easily change our attitude towards something. So this is doing the work at a breath level, but remember I mentioned do that first preparatory breath, and in preparatory breath you might also find yourself shifting your posture, right? So even before you start the 20 connected breaths, you've already softened some of the tightness, some of the habitual unconscious pattern that's been created, that's kind of condensed. So the breathing will soften and give space for a new shape, right? Now we can think of if we're living in the present moment, our configuration, our shape, so to speak, which is, by shape I mean like our energetic state, our posture, our breathing, our whole physiological rhythm, all of it should be ideally adapted to what's happening, in alignment with a bigger picture, of course, right? But a sensitivity to what is taking place in the moment. That should be what is determining how we are configured, the sensitivity to the moment. But we tend to carry old patterns, our karma, our habits. So this is for a moment breaking our karmic pattern and allowing us to be waking up to the moment again. Okay, any questions?
No, it was really clear for me. I will, yeah, it was really clear for me because I wasn't, I'm, so how I was practicing in the wrong way. I wasn't aware that I need to like do the four fast breaths, and the fifth breath should be a little longer, but still connected. I was doing like trying to do the whole 20 breaths faster. So yeah, and I wasn't aware. Yeah, so I was doing it wrong. So I'm really clear about it now,
Great.
and the explanation and everything. Yeah.
Something that it was never taught to me, but that I
Mm.
figured out. I kind of made this observation, and that is that the pattern of the fast breaths followed by the deep breath, it's like a miniature version, a microcosm of the process of going from a tense state to a relaxed state. It's like you go from fast breathing to softening and right. So it's like
Yeah.
you take yourself into a kind of sigh at the end of each of the cycles of
Mm.
four fast breaths. You take yourself into that physiological letting go. So it's also it's a way that you remind, if you're doing it properly, because if you're doing it kind of stiffly, too mechanically, then even the fast breath will be too controlled. But sorry, the slow, deeper breath will be too controlled. But the idea is that you allow yourself to, soften into it. Let it be an opening and a releasing. You are attentive to keeping it
Yeah.
connected, but also let it be soft and let yourself enjoy that expansion and that letting go. And it becomes a reawakening of the body's intelligence. So would you like to give it a go now and then see if any question comes up after doing the 20 breaths?
Yes, we can do, yes.
Okay. Even if you don't take the full 3 minutes, I suggest that
Mhm.
after completing the 20 breaths, give yourself half a minute if you like. And
Yeah.
yeah. So whenever you're ready, you can share what you're feeling, what you noticed, maybe any insights or any questions.
It is really deeply relaxing, and it is full of movement. So I'm not really stopped. Maybe this is like the meditation that can work better with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel different.
Great.
Just one question. When you exhale, when we are breathing fast and we are exhaling, do we exhale from our belly, or we don't need to?
I suggest not thinking about it because it can be a reflexive. Um, most people might not be aware of what a diaphragm is, right? But that's
Mhm.
what they're using to breathe.
Yeah.
And if you start to explain to someone, look, you've got to do this, and explaining through the diaphragm, it's not necessarily going to be helpful. So I think when you do the fast inhalation, and with the awareness that you're basically the intention being to breathe fast, the exhalation you can bring curiosity to it if you like, and see how what's happening. Is it a movement of the belly? Um, what's moving? Just notice it rather than try to make it happen.
Okay.
And you might find that something changes over time, like, oh, I was doing it in a way that felt more tense, now I found a more relaxing way to do it. That might happen, but I don't think that giving you instructions is going to make it better. I
Okay.
think just letting yourself explore it, and the more it becomes familiar, the less effort it will be, and the more you'll just drop into an easy, relaxed way of doing it. You can, if you like, explore one other thing which can help to make it more relaxing more quickly, and that is to, for example, place your hand on your heart and enter into the connection with the heart energy. So the energy of the smile. Just in that moment when you do that first breath before the 20, you can create that heart connection, and even in a kind of, again, a sort of microcosm, you can bring awareness of the body connected with the earth. You can do all of that in a
Yeah,
second, right? Begin with that
yeah.
GraceFlow, um, the essence of the GraceFlow practice, and then do the 20 breaths with that heart connection and with the energy of the smile, and you'll find that it is much more effective because you're with that openness, that with the heart connection. So you're not worrying about the counting and the timing and the getting the breathing. You find yourself much more able to enjoy it, and your nervous system will respond much more deeply if you do it with that heart connection.
Hmm. Yeah.
And if you don't remember to do the heart connection before you start, you can also do it during, or when you finish the 20 connected breaths. In that moment when you're just
Mm.
there in the restful phase, you can connect with the heart at that time, and again, it'll deepen it. But you don't need to do anything at that restful period. I would suggest not trying to add anything at that moment. You just let things unfold. You want to do it once more with the heart connection?
Okay, we can try.
Okay. Hmm.
Okay.
How was it this time? How do you feel?
feel like I completely like disconnected with the out with the outside. Yeah, be- because usually whenever you we say how we are feeling, we tend to speak about how we are feeling in relation to something. And this time when you asked, I was like, I have no answer. Like the same typical answer. Yeah.
Amazing, beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm. So the way you expressed it was you disconnected from the outside, but it could also be stated as you really connected with yourself
Mm.
so much
Yeah.
the outside became not the influence or the determinator of what you feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And from that place, and I'm let's say playing with the words here because from this place of reconnection with yourself, you can be more powerfully responsive to the outside, right? So you're not disconnected from the outside, from that place. You're
Yeah.
empowered and able to relate and respond from that place of empowerment. Yeah.
Amazing. That's true.
Wonderful. Okay. Anything you'd like to share or ask before we complete for today?
I'm okay.
Okay. Hmm. Okay. Hmm. Hmm. All right. See you on Monday. Wishing you a beautiful weekend.
Thank you. I need to go to I will have to go to the office on Monday,
Okay.
so I'll watch the recording later.
All right. All right.
Okay. See you.
Good
Bye.
luck to you. Ciao. Lots of love.